Hello? Okay, there we go. What is up, guys? Alex here, and I'm gonna start doing some basic Photoshop tutorials. So, yeah, so for beginners of the program, you know, because I don't know. Alright, well, today what we're gonna do is we're gonna give a photo a vintage look. And, yeah, so let's just jump right in. This is Photoshop. If you've never used Photoshop before, it's gonna seem very, I don't know, I'd say confusing, but kind of like some things seem unnecessary right away. Kind of like when you do a new project, you have to select the dimensions, and a lot of people that are used to like other paint programs, well, this isn't a paint program, but they're used to programs you can draw in. They don't know why you'd have to select the resolution first, stuff like that. But, so, we're going to go File, Open, and we're going to go into, I didn't pick a picture yet. I had a tutorial picture, but let's just pick one. Anyone really will do. That hasn't been colored already. Friend Billy at the shooting range. Okay, so what we're gonna do, by the way, we just double clicked and that opened right up in here. First thing I want to do is maybe run through a couple commands and what they do. For example, B is brush, and that lets you paint on your object, on your layer. And then Control Z undoes it, like with most things. So Control plus Z goes away. If you press the E key, it's for eraser, and you can erase this. And if you hit Control Z again, it goes away. I mean, we're not going to need any of that today, but it's just something you might want to know. Photoshop, I'd say less people use it for drawing brushes and stuff like that. More people use it for creating, altering images. So first thing you want to do is go to the background, and there's a lock, and you want to double click it, and then you just say OK, and all that does is it unlocks the layer so you can mess around with it. And then we're going to go into our, the whole premise of this tutorial is to give it a vintage feel, so we're going to go hit the little half black, half white circle. Some people say it looks like a yin-yang. Right. And then you're going to go to gradient map, and then that doesn't look good at all. So first off, what you want to do is change the gradient map by clicking in the little gradient box, and it's going to open up all of these. You're not going to have any of these down here. I got these from, I downloaded these off a pack somewhere. But what we're going to do is we're going to click this blue to orange gradient. We're going to select OK. And that kind of looks cool, but that's not what we're doing. So we're going to click on the layers tab again. And then we're going to go to opacity. What opacity does is it basically, it's how much you can see through an object. So like a piece of glass would be at 0 opacity, a piece of steel would be at 100%. And then, like a plastic would be somewhere down the middle. But what we're going to do is we're just going to lower this down to, I don't know, about just wherever it looks good on your photo, because sometimes 18 looks too much, but then on other times, 70 is not enough. So I think 40 looks good. And by the way, all we did is selected our gradient map and then clicked the little drop down, and then you just drag this, or you can actually type in here. And then what we can do next is add a vignette, which is where it gets darker around the edges. So we're going to click on this, and this is our gradient tool. If you don't see the gradient tool, it might look like a paint bucket tool. So if you see the paint bucket tool, or you see the gradient tool, you have to click and drag if you're on the paint bucket. So if you're on the paint bucket tool, you click, drag, select gradient. If you're on the gradient already, you just click it. And then what we're going to do is click up in this box up here, and then we're going to do this one, which is your foreground to a transparent. It might look like this. like this, black to a checkerboard. We want it to be black to a checkerboard. If it's not, what you can do is hit D on your keyboard, and that changes these two colors here, which is your foreground and background color. So say we make this red, it changes D on the keyboard, changes it to default. So we're going to go to our gradient up in here. So one more time, gradient up in here, foreground to transparent, it says it right there, and we're going to press OK. Now this these are the shape of the gradient, so this is a linear, so it goes in a line, and then Control Z to undo this. And this is the radial, which is what we're going to be using today. These ones obviously make the little pattern that it shows, and then what we're going to do is be hitting reverse. The reverse tab just flips it, so if it's not reversed, it's going to be black in the circle, or black in the center, white on the outside. But we don't want that. We want black on the edges. So I'm going to hit reverse, and then you can either guess where the center is, or wherever you want your point of focus. Say you want it on his head, and you drag it out. But I kind of like it in the center, so what I'll do is, if you hit Control R, it brings up the rulers, and then you literally click in the white box, and you drag it. It'll snap at the halfway point. You get it close to the halfway, and it'll snap. Boom, snaps. And then I'm going to click my gradient tool, and then drag out to the edge. And then if you want to not see your rulers, you hit Control H to hide them. And then this obviously doesn't look very good, so again we're going to go into our opacity, and we're going to turn it down until it looks good. Now, if we look at the difference, before, after. If you press Z, you can zoom in, which is what we're doing here, so we're going to do fit on screen. And then clicking the eyeball makes the layer go away. So again, I'm going to run through our steps. We had the original. We did the adjustment layer. This half black, half white circle stands for adjustment layer. Selected gradient map. Chose our gradient map. Lowered the opacity here. Added a new layer by pressing this icon here. And then we added a gradient by going into our gradient tool and dragging out from the center. And then we lowered the opacity on that. Now we're going to hit Control S, and we're going to save it. So we're going to save this as, let's save it to the desktop, and we're going to go down. This is a drop down menu here. If you save it as a PSD, which is what the default is, you're not going to be able to see it as an image. It's going to be a file where you can open the layers again and mess with it, but it's not going to be visible as an image. So you're going to go down to JPEG, since this originally was a JPEG, but you can also do PNG or GIF depending on what you're working on. Then you can name this whatever you want and save. And then these are your save options, how big you want the file. I almost always leave it as maximum, but sometimes you may be uploading somewhere where they have a maximum file size. So say the maximum file size is 500 kilobytes. You just drag this down until it's under 500 kilobytes. So we can go down to 7, 300, there you go. But again, I like the high quality. That does lower the quality. Okay. And we're done. So that was our first tutorial, and it was a very basic one, but leave some comments below and of what you want the next tutorial to be.